A Tale of Three Ships. My name is Daniel Vallis from InformedChristians.com, a website ministry devoted to discerning current events from a Christian and biblical perspective. Thank you to all those who pray for this ministry and support this ministry, and all those who send in news, tips, and your thoughts and feedback. I greatly appreciate it, and it all contributes together as we all look to have an understanding of the times and what we should be doing in light of it. This is a warning, but it is not a prediction. I do not know the future, but I will show you what is going on right now. We are in a time of high expectation right now, around the time of the Day of Ascension. It is hard to pinpoint exactly when that is, but we know that Scripture and the prophetic signs and the celestial signs and even the enemy action, many different things have brought us to this point. And as we rehearse the material and look back over it, we again have our faith strengthened at this time when Satan uses his darts of doubt to discourage us. When we review what the Lord has already shown us, that builds our faith. That builds our shield of faith at this time so we can be strong and wait patiently for the Lord. The enemy knows this time is very important as well. He can read the Bible, he can see the prophetic and celestial signs, and he's been warning his disciples for the past months that this time was going to be very important. And they've been using very significant pointers and time markers and many different things that they've been laying down over years and decades, preparing for this time where we are at right now. And so it does us good to rehearse the matter. Go back and look at some of our previous videos. Just refresh your memory and allow the Lord to show you how this time is very significant. And the prophetic signs and the celestial signs. Go outside. I looked at Leo last night. Very crisp night last night. And just beheld it. And again, realize the reality of the prophetic and celestial signs and all that's going on. It's a great reminder and connection with what we're studying to the reality of our day-to-day life. And the enemy has ramped up a lot of their messaging and the severity and the blatantness, especially at this very last hour. And we've seen just within the past month or so, the frequency and the volume of the message greatly increased because they know that the Son of Man, Jesus Christ, is at the gates. He's at the doors. But they also know the Son of Perdition is nigh at the doors as well. He's about to be revealed. The disciples of each side do not know exactly the day or hour. So both sides are tentatively waiting and watching. And it is during this time when we push aside the doubts and we wait patiently for the Lord. The enemy is going to continue to put out messages, and we've continued to see that because he's going to keep his disciples on their toes. And Lord willing, we will use our ministry here to keep the Christians and those of you who are listening and been paying attention and are waiting patiently for the Lord. We are doing this to encourage you to shine brightly for Christ and to wait patiently for the Lord's return. Today on the Google Doodle is very obvious what the first impression was supposed to be. Now the common description that they gave with it was that it was to commemorate Sigmund Freud. But obviously when one looks at it, one gets the inference of the Titanic because they definitely make reference to an iceberg below the surface and they even throw in a ship there, which has nothing to do with Sigmund Freud. So instantly, for those of us who are watching, it instantly recalls deliberately the concepts of the Titanic. And we've looked at that a lot, how they've been dropping those hints and weaving it even into their parables and their messaging. Because it is a picture of the mystery of iniquity, the work that they've been doing, the Titans versus the Olympians. So we've seen that theme come up a lot recently. And even with major actors, Leonardo DiCaprio, him also taking forefront at this exact same time because they're all woven together in a tapestry of iniquity. So on the Google Doodle today, they were bringing attention to two subjects. The one was the Titanic theme. Now when I looked at this Google Doodle, obviously I was hit with the impression of the Titanic because that was the most obvious one. But there's another one as well that struck me just by how it was drawing attention to itself. And that was his glasses. It took me a while to figure out what exactly it was, but the Lord reminded me of the different shape that it was referring to. Now when we contrast it a bit to help you break it down a bit, you see a crescent, a circle, a line, kind of a dot there in the middle too, and then visually another line at the horizon. And even when you look at the drawing, you could tell that they put a little smudge of dark brown across the horizon at this point too, to kind of draw your attention to there needs to be a visual line at this point. So breaking it all down, this is how I see it. You see a crescent, a circle, a downward pole, and then a cross mark. And notice how it is placed very center. It is meant to draw the eye just naturally. It will go to it because it's in the center there. So off to the side you see the Titanic and you see the underwater themes and the iceberg themes, but the eye is still always drawn to that middle mark that has a lot of contrast to it. And after comparing it with some other things, the Lord showed me that it was related to the Lego dimensions, which we have studied before with the illuminated eye and the portals and dimensions and time and all that we've talked about. And we've mentioned that on their portal, which they were promoting a lot over the past months and years, they included a very interesting symbol on it. We talked about it. It's the alchemical symbol for Mercury. They included a variation of it, giving hints to that they know how portals work. And Mercury is the messenger in Greek mythology. Now, when we compare it to this symbol, we find out that it's very similar to the variation even used by Lego. And I think that's what they're showing here is the Titanic, the Titans, Olympians, the mystery of iniquity that's largely beneath the surface, and also Mercury related to water and time, which we've seen a lot of messaging with the Titanic too as well. So again, pushing the concepts of Mercury, time, and the Titanic. Now, of course, this reminds us of another big push that the enemy gave along this very same lines just 44 days ago, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, by Tim Burton, who was the director of the first Alice movie, which set a lot of the characters and themes for this second one, the sequel. But again, bringing to mind the concepts of water as time, traveling over water using dimensional vehicles and transports like that. And we talked about how their trailer even heavily alluded to the Titanic and using water as a metaphor for going across barriers and dimensions, dimensional barriers. And we talked about other relations to Skyfall in 2012 and more tying together with the Titanic and even the triumphal arches that we've seen very recently as well. These are all connected and they're meant to jog the memory of Satan's disciples on their plan and their progress. And we talked about the tie-in with Mercury, always at the doorways and the twins and the pillars. Again, all these references. And again, they even blatantly make the connection with Mercury later on as well. And evolution and the purple rain, and we talked all about all that. So here, 44 days later, they're putting out a Google Doodle that instantly helps bring back and jog a lot of those same memories with the messaging that they've already been putting out. The Titanic, Mercury, water as time. Now, speaking of the Titanic, I just happened to be checking the news and went to the front page of the dailymail.com. And the very first headline featured article was this one about the SS United States. Inside the rusting hulk of the SS United States, eerie images reveal huge task to restore majestic ship which played host to Hollywood stars in its glory days. And I found this very suspicious because of the timing and the placement, especially in connection with the Google Doodle, which was placed today. But the fact that this was right at the top of the list on their main page drew my attention to as well. But I had been familiar with the SS United States. I love history and just morbid curiosity. I've looked at it before, but other people have also referenced how it is a very apt picture of the real United States. The ship's been in a dilapidated state in port for 20 years, just sitting there, rusting away. It's just a shell of what it used to be. And it's very striking that this is the main news item, at least on that news line, but in connection with the Google Doodle today, with a very similar ship. Even the colors are somewhat similar and reminiscent. But the fact that the United States, as a rusting old ship, comes up hours after the Wake Up America. There's more to this message than it appears. And they're bringing attention to the United States that it's an old rust bucket and way past its glory days, and there's really nothing attractive about it anymore, and its power and prestige is gone. And that is an apt illustration of the United States. And I've mentioned several times that America is the phoenix. It's even depicted on the dollar bill, and we've talked about that before. And so it's very striking that they're bringing attention to the United States in connection with the highly politicized Wake Up America campaign, with all the other connections with Phoenix that we've seen as well, very recently in America as well. This is a message. America cannot be restored. America will not be great again. You cannot make a country great when it is marinated in Hollywood, the occult, fornication, and so many other things that our country is marinated in. You cannot have a great country when it is steeped in sin. It is impossible. And as Christians, we need to have a frank and realistic look at America, if you live here, but also the world as a whole too. You look beyond the political slogans and the political campaigns, and we need to look at the world through a Christian and biblical perspective. We need to set our sights and live for a world where the moth and rust doth not corrupt, where thieves don't break through and steal. We should set our time, our energy, our finances, our strength, our passion. We should spend all that on things that matter, things of eternity. Not this rusting old ship of a world. It's going down. We've been talking a lot about that. Our job right now is we're getting ready for the evacuation, pointing people to the lifeboats, getting ready to leave. We are strangers and pilgrims here. This is not our home. And even Satan is reminding his disciples and reminding the world that the United States is just an old rust bucket. On the same day that they bring up the ideas of Titanic and a ship sinking and a hidden work being the larger work. And all this was just a few hours after another ship was made prominent in the news as well on a very significant river that we've been talking a lot about. Viking Cruises just recently christened their newest ship, the Viking See, and they brought it to the Thames River. And as you can see from the pictures, it was a big to-do. It was catching a lot of attention because it's a big ship, and they were talking about how this was one of the largest ocean-going vessels to ever be christened on this river. We've talked about this river representing time particularly because of the Royal Observatory there with Greenwich time and Big Ben and the other illusions, especially with the river as time and Isis up above that as well. And we talked about the Wake Up boat story that they had here just not too far from where this picture was taken. So again, they're bringing back attention to this same hot area that we've been looking at. And now they're bringing attention to a boat, a traveling down the river of time, in connection with purple. Notice the fireworks are purple, and they made mention that the fireworks display depicted the colors of the two main runners in the mayoral elections, which were red and blue. So you combine those and you get purple. So a lot of the fireworks, which includes other colors as well, but is primarily the purple and purplish blues, because they know this is another celebration. It's time for purple rain. And they're using this boat, again, traveling down time to bring attention to it. And we've pointed out a lot of the significance of these areas before with the Olympic Stadium and the Royal Observatory and the London Eye and Big Ben. They've been drawing a lot of attention to this area ever since the arch was set up. Even before that, we talked about that too as well with the Monopoly and the dice and the Lion Cat, all that, and the church, even in Alice through the Looking Glass trailers. They're drawing attention to this area because they're using it as a massive metaphor. Time is about to change. And they know it is time for purple rain. Now right now we find ourselves on day 28, May the 6th, which is the 40th day, depending how you count it, plus or minus a couple hours. But basically, we should not get caught up necessarily on trying to lock it into a day. All we know is we are at the time. We don't have definite 100% proof that the ascension is locked into this day, but we know it's right around this time. And Jesus did tell his disciples, and just put it out there, that he might delay his coming until the fourth watch, intimating that he might delay his coming just slightly more than expected. So all we know is we are at the time that Christ has brought our attention to with the prophetic signs and the celestial signs. And we see the enemy also busy at this time, anticipating something to happen right around this time. So all we can do is wait patiently. And the enemy is going to continue to put out more messages to keep their disciples ready and vigilant and sober. And as Christians, we need to be ready. We need to be sober. We need to be vigilant as well. We need to wait patiently. Stay in God's Word. Stay in prayer. Stay busy for things of eternity. Keep shining bright, especially at this late hour. And as you could see on this day between the 5th and 6th, depending on your time zone, the enemy has brought attention to 3 different ships, all as important metaphors and messaging. And when we zoom out on the timeline just a little bit, and just look at what has happened within the past 45 days, the messages that they've put out today, just within the past few hours, are orderly and go exactly with the messaging that's been in the past 45 days. And one thing I noticed is that these 3 different surges in messaging, the Miss Peregrine's movie trailer, the Titanic commemorations, and then the 3 ships today, they're equally placed out 22 days apart, the 44 days from start to finish. This is very orderly how it was done. The one at the very beginning drew attention to the commemorative events, and then the ships that we see today brought to mind the commemorative events and also the introductory metaphors, a reminder of what the messaging went with. So we see a systematic messaging and metaphors that Satan is using with his disciples, reminding them of the battle of the Titans against the Olympians, their version of how they portray the mystery of iniquity, and reminders today that the ship is about to go down, and time is about to be altered, and purple rain is about to start. Friend, I do not know the future, but I do know, just looking back on what we have seen with the prophetic signs and the celestial signs, God has drawn our attention to this time for a reason. So we can rest in that. Our faith can be strong because of that. And we can wait patiently on the Lord, trusting that His timing is perfect. Hebrews 9:28. So Christ was once offered to bear the sins of many, and unto them that look for Him shall He appear the second time without sin unto salvation. Are you looking for Him? I hope so. And we are looking for Him in the pattern of His first coming, and we are looking for Him to come the second time. So while we are waiting, we will make ourselves busy while we wait. We will shine bright. We will strive to have Christ seen in us. And we will encourage each other and provoke each other to love and to good works. We are all the handmaids, helping each other get ready. Collectively, we are the bride of Christ. But it is our job as the handmaids to provoke each other to love and to good works, and to make sure each other is ready for that special day, when we see our Redeemer coming to pick up His redeemed possession, the bridegroom, our beloved. And may you be found watching and waiting patiently. Serve Christ first and highest above all else. Maranatha.